So I've been reading this book called The Manifestation Millionaire, and in it, the author presents this concept of the golden middle path. So in Buddhism, there's an idea of a middle path, meaning that you shouldn't live in extremes. It even tries to dissolve the idea of good and bad. It's very anchored in the idea that there is just being, there is just things happening. And so if you're not influenced by them, if you're not resisting them, if you're not pushing against the flow of life, that you'll inevitably find a peace and serenity and happiness. And even furthermore, you'll find an alignment with what your true purpose and your true cause is. And so, one of the most fascinating stories they tell about this is there was a guy by the name of Steve Jobs, you probably heard of him, who at 19 decided he wanted to go to India and find this amazing teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, who was a teacher to many famous people, spiritual leaders. He's touched millions of lives. People said he could perform miracles. And he wasn't actually able to meet this man because he passed away before he got there. But the seeds were already sown that he was on this path of discovering, or trying to discover enlightenment. He really had no interest in, worldly possessions. He had no interest in building a massive tech company that would change the world. Yet when he finally did meet his teacher told him to do exactly that. He said that he had to have one foot in each of these worlds. So even though he was devoted to meditation and he would go on retreats, he would do daily walks in silence. He was very much still obviously in the material world and ended up being probably, arguably, one of the most influential humans to ever walk this planet. So, what does that all mean for our lives, right? And so, I think one thing that I've learned on this 10-year journey going from a corporate fast-paced life to, being a yoga and breathwork, a meditation teacher, retreat leader, is that we have to find that golden middle path, and that ultimately the practices like breathwork, meditation, the spiritual path, if you will, the spiritual journey, really has to find an integration with a life that feels aligned. We have to really determine what our purpose is. We have to wake up with a zest and a fervor for what it is that we're investing our time and our energy into. Otherwise, these practices are just nervous system regulation tools that regulate us back into a life that we're not satisfied with and that we're not happy with. And that's why you see people kind of looping right through all these different things. They're trying different classes, they're picking up all the books, they're reading all the podcasts, they're, in information overload about how to get there. And yet they really have not found a sustainable path towards happiness. So alignment, purpose, and really finding that golden middle path of yes, you have the discipline, you have the practices, but then you've got to go out onto the playing field of life, right? And be a part of this human experience. So I'm curious of, what you guys think of, that kind of middle path, or how is that showing up in your life? Or if you're challenged by that, what are the biggest challenges to integrating, how you feel after a great yoga class or meditation, or, you know, being in one of these spiritual spaces and then having to go integrate with all the craziness and the madness of this material world that we live in. So love to start a conversation around this and hear what you guys have to say. Tell me how you're walking that golden middle path.